Beloved, see what love the Father has bestowed on us, and that we are called children of God. That is an amazing statement, that we are called children of God. And that's what we are now, St. John says. I think a lot of us have grown up with the idea that every human being on the planet is a child of God. Well, in a loose sense, that's true, but that's not what John is talking about or the Scriptures. Let's talk about that. What it means to be a child of God now. We are all children of Adam and Eve. We are all descendants of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, just a refresher of our story, they were created in God's very image and likeness. And so the Scripture says that they were children of God. God literally created them. Adam and Eve are the children of God. And Adam and Eve were incredible. God created them in His image and likeness, and they were amazing. They were perfect. Adam and Eve could love perfectly. They had all of the same desires that we do, all the same instincts that we do, but they controlled them all perfectly disciplined. And the reason for that is because Adam and Eve were connected to God. Like there was a spiritual umbilical cord, so to speak, that connected them to God. Adam and Eve did not live according to the natural law like animals do. They were connected to God. And so therefore, Adam and Eve would live forever. That was the plan. They would never become sick. They were living by a divine grace and a divine power. That's what we believe. That was the life in the Garden of Eden. Perfect. And as they were living that life, the devil showed up. As he always does. He's a jerk. The devil came and he tempted them, didn't he? And the temptation of the devil was, do you really need God? You could be gods on your own. And they fell for it. That image of eating the apple is them taking control of their life. And in that moment, something very tragic and profound happened. By choosing to be on their own, that umbilical cord was severed with God. And God became separate from them. You say, gosh, God is so mean. Is He? God is love. He can't force anyone. It's like a parent whose children grow, and those children want to reject you, parents. They no longer want to, they don't want to receive what you've given them. They reject your idea, they reject your traditions, and they want to leave home. So parents, what do? Chain them to the front porch? You as loving parents, you let them go. You let them go. It's what you do. What else can you do? And so God let Adam and Eve go. And they left the garden. Now you as parents, you know that if any moment those children came back, you'd be right there waiting for them, and so it is for God. But the point is that Adam and Eve left, and they fell from that relationship, and now were bound to the natural order. So they would die, and they would get sick. And in that disruption from God, their souls were injured. You and I are children of Adam and Eve. That's where we come in. And so, yes, we're created in God's image and likeness, but we no longer have that original ability of Adam and Eve. Here's what I mean by that. We all know how to love, but do we love perfectly? You who are husbands and wives, would you say that your love for each other is perfect? You want it to be, but why isn't it? It's because there's something broken in us. As much as we want to, it seems like I can't. Our natural order towards food and drink, for example. Just those natural things for food and drink. I want to be disciplined in that, but how come it's so hard? It's just food and drink. What's so hard about that? I can't do it. I want to be patient. I don't want to be angry, but how come I can't? I want to be kind and I want to be loving. Why? How come I can't? Because I'm disordered on the inside. All of us are. It's how we were made as children of Adam and Eve. That's our reality. And if we look around, isn't that what we see? People trying really hard, and great things get started, great organizations and great countries, and they get going, and then they come crashing down. What the heck? And the good news, though, is that God came and took on one of those human bodies and human natures, and he entered into it, and he showed us once again that a human being can do it. And he exemplified and he modeled perfect love and perfect discipline, didn't he? He never sinned. He did it. He showed that it's possible. He lived as the new Adam, and that's what Scripture calls him. He's the new Adam. He lived as Adam originally lived and as he ought to have lived. So it can be done. And I know what some of you are thinking, yeah, Father, he could do it because he's God, and I'm not. And you're right. But Jesus, in his death and his resurrection, enabled something wonderful to take place. Now Jesus has the capacity and power to put his very Christ life into us. He puts his Christ life into us so that it can be possible for us. He puts his life into us. And how that happens is right here at the baptismal font. Through our faith and belief in him, and in the sacrament of baptism, we are born again. Isn't that our language? We are born again. And what the Apostle John is saying now to all of us Christians who have been baptized, you're God's children now. That's what he said. Beloved, you're God's children now. You're no longer Adam and Eve's children. Now you're God's children. That's good news. Seriously, people? You're like, oh, that's great. No, really, that's good news. We are now God's children. And when we were baptized, God reconnected us. That kind of spiritual umbilical cord got reconnected. Guess who's going to live forever? Everyone who's been in there. We believe that, right? Just checking. And so Christ pours his life into us that we now may live perfectly. But I know what you might be thinking now. Okay, Father, I've been baptized, and I've been baptized for a long time. How come I'm still struggling with all these things? I'm not perfect yet. Enter the spiritual life. Just because we're baptized, it's not automatically, bling, everything's healed. Our inside, our soul has been disordered, and Christ is going to heal it in us. And the healing process, the reason why we're not all perfect yet, is because the healing process is by following Jesus on the cross. The healing process is death. That's not the good news. That's the treatment. The good news, you can be healed. The bad news, it's going to hurt. But isn't all healing that way? But don't be dissuaded by that. Jesus set it up this way. He modeled it for us. Here's what I mean by we have to die. I want to be kind. I want to be patient. And in this moment, fury is raging inside of me. That fury has to die in me. I have to die to myself right there. I have to surrender, and it has to die. And when it dies, I allow it to be crucified with Christ. This is Paul's language. I allow that to be crucified with Christ in me. I put it to death. And Christ says, if you die in me, what will happen to you? You will rise. And what happens is, what rises in me is a new life. Christ rises in me, and in me is a restored order. A part of me has just died and risen and has been healed. The difficulty is, there's a lot of me that's disordered. And most of us do not like the dying part. So we stay away from it. We sidestep around it. We get close to it, and kind of like a fire, you put your hands, it feels good up kind of close. When you get too close, it hurts, and we pull away. We kind of do that with our lives and the cross. And so the healing doesn't take full effect. What Christ is asking for us is a full surrender, a full I give up. We surrender to Jesus and let him take us and let him heal us. Let us die to ourselves, die to all of those things in us that are not good, that are not holy, and let Jesus rise in me anew. That's the vision. And I struggle in that. We got to jump into that. And some people surrender really well. In the corner over there is a statue of St. Therese, the Little Flower. St. Therese of Lisieux, a beautiful Carmelite. That woman, at a young age, she surrendered herself to God. Incredible. She fully surrendered to God, and at a very young age became one of the greatest saints of the church. She's the doctor of love. There's only 42 doctors in the church in our history, and she's one of them. She's called the doctor of love. She got it. This little girl got it. Guys, you think you're so tough? Follow her. I want to. But I get scared sometimes, and it's tough. And this is why we need each other. And this is why we come to church. And this is why we are continually fed by Jesus, so we can enter into that cycle. And it's not easy. But Jesus said in the gospel today, I have the power to lay down my life and the power to take it up again in you. And in you, and you, and in me. And that's what we live. We live the dying and rising of Christ. St. Paul said, we live the death of the Lord. Well, what does that mean? Now you know. So if you're wanting that restored life, if you want that, I'm with you. And if you're struggling with that, that's precisely why I'm here. I would happily walk with you in that. And so will our staff. We have counselors on our staff who are available. We have great people in our community we can plug in with. Don't try to go at it alone. It might be too hard sometimes. But I invite you into it. If we just keep sidestepping it, ole, and keep letting it go, we're not going to make much progress. The saints, they just surrender it. And they let that purifying take place. And we look at them like they're crazy. But then all of a sudden we see them again and we're like, you're holy. Wow. It's because they went through the death and resurrection over and over again. Brothers and sisters, you're God's children now. You're no longer Adam and Eve. You are God's children. Congratulations. Let's walk together. And I wish you all the very best. We're in this together. Don't give up. It's worth it. Heaven. Perfection. That's a lot better than a box of Twinkies.